to another episode of Becoming the Light from the Shadows of Abuse. As always, we have another wonderful guest on, being very open and honest and sharing her story to help other people who might be on a similar journey to trying to overcome and understand things that have happened in their lives, past traumas, that of course things that we, like everyone, that we don't understand, and that we would rather get over and become a different person and live our lives in a different way. And I'm just so blessed with the amazing women that I get on this show, that they have all been through that, they are all doing that, and they are all sharing to help you do the same. So my guest today is Melanie Wood, and as always, I'm going to hand over to Melanie and ask her to introduce herself. So, hi Melanie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here and be able to share stories and really be able to help the audience as well. So my name is Melanie Wood. I'm the founder and owner of my business Speaking Styles, and I help women to be able to gain clarity and confidence, to find their voice and really share their message and the amazing work that they do to be able to go out and help more people as well. And it's something that I'm so passionate about, helping people with public speaking, getting on camera, doing podcasts, those sort of things, because everybody has something and has a story inside of them to share, to really help other people do the same. So I absolutely love being able to help women, just being able to overcome some of those fears that can go with sharing your story, putting yourself out there, and really showcasing who you are, your business and your organization as well. So thank you for having me.
And I know the amazing thing about what you just said, you were sharing with me before we started, that you used to be terrified of public speaking. So tell us a little bit about that before we have a look at the journey that you've been on and how you've got to where you are.
Yeah, public speaking, I used to avoid it at every opportunity. It's school, I'd be sitting waiting for the bell to ring, thinking I've made it through another day. I've not had to get up in front of the class, all through school. And then it got to when I went to university. And as part of my degree, you had to do presentations. And I was like, back being a child, having tantrums and all sorts of stuff at university, going, I'm not doing this. And they said, oh, you won't pass if you don't do it. And of course, I really managed to create the chaos around only being able to do it in front of like 3 people, because I thought that would make me feel better. And literally I only had to do it like a couple of times and then avoided it again. But the same as going for job interviews, like I used to be so fearful, like my hands would shake, I'd end up with blotchy face, neck, and all of these things that I've cried in interviews, and I've spilt water in interviews just by being so fearful. And I really just avoided it at all costs. And I'm sure for some people potentially tuning into this, you may feel the same or have been the same as well. And it's something, I suppose, it was a learned behavior of nobody in my family ever did any kind of public speaking. So it's a bit like when, your mom's scared of spiders, you just continue to go, spiders are really scary. Well, public speaking is really scary as well.
And I think as well, it's not just public speaking. It's about expressing and using your voice, and it comes from your belief in uncertainty in yourself. Because obviously where the fear of public speaking or of expressing anything is a fear of being rejected, of being wrong. It's all about the thoughts and the opinions and the needs of other people. How are they going to react to me? What are they going to make me feel? What are they going to make me think about myself? What will they think of me?
Yeah.
And when you are absolutely certain in yourself, none of that really matters. I work as a hypnotherapist helping people heal trauma. And I tell people it doesn't have to take years. And in 12 weeks' time, you're going to feel completely different. And there's a lot of people who really, really do not like me saying that kind of thing. And you really have to put aside the opinions of other people, because I am certain and sure in what I do and what I'm saying and the results I get. So I can speak up with absolute certainty, not caring about what other people might say.
Oh, definitely agree. Absolutely. I'm the same, and I teach other people how to do the same. Of you've got a message, and really getting the confidence and clarity means that you can continue to keep getting up and sharing it.
Yeah, and it comes from us knowing our truth.
Yeah.
And we are just getting up and speaking our truth. And there will be haters, and there will be people that don't agree, and people who don't like it, and people who don't approve. And they really don't matter. And
Mm.
it's when you understand that you are always going to connect with the right people and a certain amount of people. And there will always be people who are going to try and diminish you and put you down, and who will loathe and detest you and what you're saying. And it doesn't matter. You're not here for them. It's but it's a fantastic place to get to. But
Yes.
I'm just illustrating for people that that is, if anyone's listening and you can relate to this idea of not being able to express yourself, feeling like your opinions aren't valid, worried about what other people will say and think, then I'm just illustrating for you where that comes from. And for so many, it goes back to, oh, maybe I'll work with someone and we'll be working on this, and it goes back to, they don't know this, but their subconscious reveals that it goes back to when they were in school and they answered a question wrong and everyone laughed. And the teacher, whose job it is to make you feel safe and secure and certain, and to let you know that it doesn't matter and well done for trying, maybe the teacher joined in and
Mm.
made you feel worse. You know, and but that's, as children, what you don't see is that's just an adult that isn't fit for the job that they're meant to be doing. As
Yeah.
a child, you just take it on and you decide, well, I won't say anything then. I don't want to be laughed at. I don't want to be feel embarrassed and stupid in this way, so I just won't say anything. And it can really, it begins there, whether it's at school, whether it's at home. Just this desire not to stand out and look stupid, because we all want to connect and to not be rejected.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are those main key things that when I'm with working with clients is around rejection, humiliation, and everybody's got a story of when I was in school, this happened to me. Like they've
Yes.
all got that type of story that comes with putting themselves out there as an adult.
Exactly. And what we don't realize is that as an adult, it's completely different. We have different tools, resources, different abilities. And it's wonderful when you can shift and move in that absolute self-belief and certainty, which clearly you do now, but you didn't always. And
No.
we're here to hear about your story, what you went through, what you overcame. So take us back to the beginning and tell us where all this started for you. And yeah, just take us on the journey so other people can be inspired if they're feeling as you were.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And yeah, and really going back to, and I suppose really going back to childhood as we were discussing before we came on, and really about, for me, it was around, I really was seeking external affection, external love, because I never felt that I received that from home, and not because my parents were horrible to me in any way. It was just the upbringing that we had around certain things about how you showed people love. And really, when I look back at that, is that then what I started to do, I started to seek it outside. And I would, go on nights out, get really drunk, and end up going home with, different types of guys, and all of these things that really didn't fill me up and actually made me feel worse and empty. But for a split second, I got what I needed, and I got the love that I was looking for, but then felt really empty afterwards. And then when I was around 17, I went to Spain. So I'm from Scotland, and I went to Europe and worked and lived there for 6 months. And when I came back, I had the travel bug. I just thought, right, I really want to immigrate to another country. It's warm somewhere else compared to Scotland. And I came back and just did a bit of research. And the States was always somewhere. I'd been on holiday with family, and I thought, that's where I want to end up living, because I've been there. I love it. Like, I know what it's like. And when I came back from Europe, I looked into that, and I looked into Camp America, if anybody's heard of that. And you get to do like 3 months working with the kids who are on their holidays, doing some really fun, cool things on camp. And then you can extend that visa to go traveling or looking into, getting a green card. So I really looked into all of that, had my ticket, had everything booked up to go, and I had about 6 months to go. And I went on a night out like I generally always did every Friday, Saturday night. In this particular night, I got very, very drunk, and I remember what I felt like this light was coming towards me, and it was actually a guy in a white shirt, and I felt like it was your knight in shining armor coming towards me, saving me from my drunken legs. And so I met this guy, and we danced the night away, went home with them, and then actually ended up starting a relationship with him. So I was 18 at that point. He was in his 30s, and we started dating and starting getting into a relationship. And then I think within 6 months I moved in with him. There was just so much that I feel like I just wanted to cling on, because I was receiving something that I was looking for that I wasn't getting at home. And I thought, if I move in with him, then I can control him, and I can, I want to settle down and get married. I'm not going to America now, so let's just go for it. And that ticket to America went in the bin, and I followed what I thought was my heart, and got into a relationship and got married when I was 21. And even between 18 and 21, there was certain things that were happening in our relationship that I just kind of put to the side, thinking I hadn't really had any other relationships that I could really kind of look on and go, well, this is what it's meant to be like. So I just kind of thought, oh, well, maybe it's just, it's just the beginning of a relationship. We're just kind of settling in, working each other out, all of those different things.
Red flags.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
very, very important to bring in there.
Yes.
Yeah, what Melanie's talking about are the red flags. And it is so important that anyone in any stage of any relationship, the red flags are there for a reason. And they are there to be paid attention to. And I say that as someone, that's no secret, I've been in a narcissistic marriage for a very long time. I was very, very good at ignoring the red flags. So pay attention to the red flags.
Definitely, absolutely. And yeah, as you said, they were there. I just chose not to actually look at them and become aware of them. I just put them to the side, and then thought, oh well, we'll get married, and again, I'll change them. It'll be all fine. As soon as we can get married, it will be absolutely fine. And then we did get married, and nothing obviously changed, and things got worse. But I felt in that moment that I had got in way too deep. So even though all those red flags were there, as soon as then I got married, is that I thought, I can't do anything about it. I'm 21, and I just thought, all my other friends were getting married, settling down, having kids. Was I going to be that statistic and leave that marriage? But there was no way that I could have left the marriage, because I was in too deep. And more and more things were happening, and I got scared. I got really scared around if I left, what would happen. And he made it very clear, what would happen in that moment as well. So I just thought, well, this is my life. And a bit like, I've made my bed, I've got to sleep in it. And this is what marriage is like. And looking at my own parents and, thinking they got together because my mom fell pregnant, all of these things, I thought, well, that's just what you do. This is just what happens.
Yeah, so And this is very important here for illustrating how we follow the patterns that
Yeah.
we've learnt, and how so much of what we do isn't about us. It's not our beliefs. It's not us thinking things through and discovering and learning. It is simply us accepting what we have observed and seen in our environment and taking it on board, and even the negative stuff saying, well, this is just how it is, because you don't have anything else to reference. As in your case, just kept looking at it saying, well, this is just what it is. This is just how things are. and
Yeah.
and also I think it's very important here what you've already illustrated, that we talk such a lot about trauma and abuse, and your parents weren't abusive in that way, but look at how easy it is for, and this is very important for parents listening, how easy it is for your children to have unmet childhood needs, that leave them feeling unlovable, unfulfilled, and with these unmet childhood needs, that they then try to get love and validation elsewhere. And I think as parents, it's so, oh, it's vital for us to be aware that that can happen to our children without us actually being abusive. And when their needs are for connection, and for this display of love that lets them know that they're lovable, they're wanted, they're enough, giving them all of that safety and security. And when they don't get that, your story is so familiar, that this is what happens. I did something very similar myself in my kind of late teens, early 20s. So yeah, just to be aware that just because abuse isn't emotional, it's not physical, it's not sexual, we can still have in our relationships these huge unmet childhood needs that lead to this lack of self-worth, and these abusive relationships.
Yeah.
So just thought that was
Yeah, definitely.
worth putting in there, so that, because that's
Yeah.
how you got to where you were. Yeah.
Definitely, and it is, yeah, you're absolutely right, and I totally agree. Looking back and the work that I've done since then, and more around the brain and everything like that, you start to really understand more of it, of what happens when we're children. And yeah, so I got married, and I actually got married in the Dominican Republic, and we went over there by ourselves. So I suppose there was another red flag, right? Of going to the Caribbean island just together. So there was no way that I was going to ever get out of that one. And on the day of my wedding, I just remember crying. And in a video of my wedding, it's not crying of tears of joy. They're crying of, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? And I can't
Wow.
do this. I knew on that day, like I knew, and at that point I didn't really understand intuition and really following your gut, those things, because they were never really kind of explained to me, but obviously that's what was happening. And I knew walking down and getting married was the worst mistake of my life, but I felt like I had no other option, and I went through with it knowing that life was going to get pretty worse after that. And then flying home, and yeah, and things would get even worse, because then for him, he was married to me, he felt that he could be more controlling. And I wasn't to have friends, couldn't go out, couldn't really have a life, all of those things that, as much as I thought when we get married I would be able to control him, the controlling of me then got worse, because I couldn't, I never really saw friends, I didn't see family, like I really just I wasn't able to, because things would just get worse, and I just got more scared and more fearful of all of that. And I suppose around shame and guilt around, if I did look to leave, I think I would feel really kind of shameful around leaving. So there was more things that I would put on myself for leaving, and having to, I suppose, tell people, right? That kind of fear of expressing yourself, and the fear of rejection if I was to then tell friends that this was happening and I'd left my marriage. Like there was all those inner voices coming into it, that it was just better to stay where I was. And I really just didn't, as more and more went along, I just didn't have the strength to it either, because I did leave several times, and I'd go back, to my mom and dad's for a night, and then just say, oh, we've just had an argument, and I'm just, coming home and just playing it down. Newlyweds, this is what happens. And he would always manipulate me back, and I was never strong enough to leave. And the more intense that it got, the worse that I just didn't have that voice.
Yeah. And there's a couple of important things here. Number one, love is not about control.
Mm.
That those two things do not go together. Love is about giving someone the freedom to be themselves and loving them as they are. And for them, as they are, being absolutely perfect for you. It's like that line in Bridget Jones' Diary, isn't it? Where Mr. Darcy tells her she's perfect just as she is. And that is love. When we need to control someone, or when someone is controlling us, that's just fear. That comes from fear. That's nothing to do with love. And I think it's very, very important for people to understand that. And also that you always have a choice. I know you said you felt that you didn't, but I imagine looking back, you understand that you had a choice. And that along the way, there were many times where it was a better choice was available to you. Because what happens, as you saw, you gradually get more and more entrapped, woven into things, you get worn down, and you have less of a sense of yourself, and it's harder and harder to leave.
Absolutely. And it got to the point where I used to, go for a shower. I felt like that was my only safe haven in the house. And I'd sit there in the bath with the shower, and I would just sit there just like going, please just help me out of this. Like, please just help me. And I will do whatever it takes to get out of this and do something for the rest of my life. Like, I didn't know at the time, but I just went, just please just help me out of this. And those points, like those low points, I did contemplate really going, the easiest thing is just not to be here. And the easiest thing for me to do is for me to do that to myself, because either he's going to or I'm going to have to do that, because I thought this is just going to get worse. And I was very good at putting on a mask. So I'd go to work 5 days a week, and I had that mask on. And really nobody got to know the real me at work, because it was and it was another thing, I suppose, from parents, as soon as you get to the door at work, you put, home behind you and you go into work. So it was like I was already programmed into, you have a mask for work and you have one for home anyway. So I would turn up at work and just have that mask on. And if anybody, I suppose, tried to attempt to really get to know me, I would really go defensive on that. And I look back, and probably my behavior and the way I spoke to people probably wasn't that great. However, it was just a defense on, you're getting too close, like I need to do something to be able to get you to back off and not come into my space. Because when you're in that point of feeling really helpless and hopeless, is that one thing could just break you into a heap on the floor. So I was very good at keeping the strength around work. But then more and more things were happening, my body as well, obviously, in terms of, I know now in terms of stress and what that does to your body now. I didn't at the time. So it was always occasions where at work I collapsed and ended up in hospital with absolutely no answers to what was happening. And so those things were happening a lot, where I was under a lot of stress, sick a lot, pain, and without any answers to any of it. And a lot of it was gynecological issues as well. Of course, that's, where to hold the trauma of obviously what I was going through as well. And again, I didn't know that at the time.
This is another very interesting point. Obviously, we work in the holistic space, and holistic healers, we're very in touch, we're very in tune, and we understand the connection between trauma and what goes on emotionally and the connection to your physical body. And you've brought up a very, very valid point here, that you would go to hospital and there was no explanation. And I think it's very important for people who are listening to understand that in the holistic world, we work very, very closely with the connection between the whole soul, spirit, body, mind, body connection. Everything is connected. And that's why we can come up with the healing and the answers. But the traditional medical system is they very, very rarely get this connection. And like you presenting in hospital, I don't suppose anyone asked you what happened to you. What have you experienced? What are you going through? What could possibly be causing this? Whereas, and that is our traditional medical system that most people go to, and they just don't have the tools and the understanding around trauma that holistic healers do. And time again, people experience that they will go to see a doctor or go to hospital, as I say, with panic attacks, anxiety, these kind of things, and they do not get the kind of response that they will get from someone who works holistically, as you experience. It's all unexplained. No, it wasn't unexplained. It's due to trauma and the effect of trauma on the body.
That's right, absolutely. And I suppose I kept seeking the answers, like I think I got into that cycle of, anytime there was pain, go to the doctors, go to the hospital, still no answers. But then I went down the route of, all these investigations and all of these things, because I thought, well, then they'll have the answer, because I didn't really know about anything about doing the inner work. I didn't know any of that type of stuff back then. And so those things were happening a lot, and people just, I suppose, at work just thought it's maybe just the pressure of job and work and those types of things. And then during work, so it was probably around 6 years later, after getting into the relationship with him, and he was very into drugs and alcohol and spiking my drink and things like that at home with drugs, and make sure I'm keeping up all night as well as everybody else in the house, all of those different types of things. And then it was one day I had a bit of a horrific morning with them, and then eventually got to work. And one of my co-workers, at that point, the mask was just not going to be on very strongly that day. I couldn't take it anymore. The adventure that I had to even get to work because of everything else that was going on. And I eventually got to work and went into where I was, and there was one co-worker there, and she must just have known. She just would have known. And she literally, it's like she took her shoes off. She came over to me and she said, "Are you okay?" And I knew in that instant that I knew I had to say no, and I had to really entrust someone and say that I wasn't okay and be okay with what was going to happen next. And I said, and I broke down and I told her everything. And it was like divine timing, because she had experienced what I had experienced, and she must have known probably a lot of my behaviors, and she must have probably just thought, I need to wait for a moment for when she's ready. And she was, and she literally was there for me for an entire year. Like, she helped me build my strength, my confidence, never pushed me. She just knew that just by being there for me, giving me some advice, giving me suggestions, doing everything right, and then within a year, I left that relationship, and I owe her my life. Like, if it wasn't for her, I would not be here today, because either way, I would have ended it or he would have ended it. And on that particular night, we'd actually went on a night out. So I was starting to build my confidence, and I started to just not care anymore. And I just thought, I'm going to start going out with friends. And he didn't like her because he knew that I was getting a lot more confident because of her. And on that particular night out that we had to have a conversation with him on the phone, and he was, screaming abuse down the phone. And my friend said, "You cannot go home." She said that if you go home, you will not be here. He's absolutely lost his mind. And I didn't. I stayed at hers that weekend and never went back again, and stayed away permanently from that moment on. And I had enough strength to, even when he did obviously try and manipulate me back, I just went, no, not doing this. Went straight to a lawyer and started the process, and thought, no, I just need to do what I need to do to set the motion that he knows I'm not coming back, and I'm serious.
And there's an incredible lesson there for people as well,
Mm.
in that what we can observe quite clearly is that abuse, any abuse, relies on the victim
Mm.
not saying anything.
Yeah.
It relies on the fear of the victim that they will be blamed, that they will feel ashamed, all of these things. And there's a saying that I've used on a few of my podcasts, and I say to people, there would be far less abuse if we all told our stories
Yeah.
as they unravel. Imagine the first time someone abuses you,
Yeah.
whether it's emotionally, physically, sexually, whatever. You tell someone.
Mm.
You tell someone who listens.
Yeah.
Even if you're planting a seed and they say, let me know if that happens again.
Yes.
I'm here for you. Tell me. Just imagine if we could all do this. Look what happened to you as soon as you confided in someone. You know,
Yeah.
within a year.
Yeah.
So imagine how different that would have been if you had felt able,
Yeah.
well, number one, to see the red flags, but even in the beginning, to
Mm.
just tell someone. If you'd gone into work one morning and someone had said, "Oh, are you okay?" and you said, "Actually, can I run this past you? Can I just tell you what's going on here?"
Yeah.
Imagine if instead of living in fear and covering up the
Mm.
abuse, we all expressed what was happening as it happens. It
Absolutely.
would be amazing.
It definitely would be. Absolutely.
But look, I love how you've illustrated here how everything changed once you did that.
Yeah.
Once you stopped hiding, stopped pretending, stopped thinking you had to deal with this, that it was somehow your fault, that you were to blame, that you just had to get on with this. Look
Mm.
how everything changed. And I think that is gold for anyone in an abusive situation who's thinking that they're worried about what other people are going to think. How are they going to resolve this? You don't need the details, but you just need to not be silent, and
Yeah.
and somehow someone will help you
Yeah.
find a way. And I just think it's wonderful the way you've said, kind of a year later, just a year, you were a completely different person. And
Mm.
like, yeah, I don't doubt for 1 minute from what you said that it was either that or he would have killed you. So
Mm.
we need to take this stuff very seriously.
Absolutely. And all of the fears that I had if I left, it's so interesting because they weren't actually there. Like when I left, yes, we had to sort out a lot of things, but that fear that I had around guilt, shame, humiliation, rejection, like nobody ever thought that of me.
No,
Were
why
there
would
for me.
they?
Yeah, it was
Why
just
would they?
exactly. So it was just on
Absolutely.
my head.
Yeah, we make up all these things. And also I would say, I was talking to someone recently, and she had been, because she was thinking of leaving and her husband knew she was, he had manipulated her to the degree where she had a breakdown, because he'd been telling her, no one will like you, no one will believe you, no one will want to be with you,
Yeah.
you won't have anything, I'll stop all your money, you won't have anywhere to live, you won't see the kids. I mean, he literally piled on her 24/7 for weeks, all
Mm.
this negativity. But she did find the courage to leave anyway. Well, she had to. She ended up very, very unwell. But
Mm.
obviously what she discovered was that none of this was true.
Yes.
There are laws and all of these things that he was saying that had led her to this breaking point. In a
Mm.
way, it's good that they did, because she was then able to get free. But none of it was true. He could not do any of those things.
Yep.
And within a few weeks of getting the right help, she was a completely different person. She was telling him what was going to happen and what she was going to have, because she had the right people behind her. And
That's
it's important, anyone listening, you're not doing this alone.
yeah.
There are things, there are places, there are people in place to support you.
That's right, exactly. And that was my friend helping me to leave. She was that person to help me around, what to do when I did leave, and everything was put into place, bank accounts, lawyer, like everything was literally waiting for me for the day of going, I'm done. I'm not going back. So helping in those moments, if people are wanting to go, right, I need to maybe do some things before I leave, there's people to help you do that, to advise you, all of those things that then give you the confidence. And as you say with your friend, that I called the shots. As soon as I left, I called the shots with how this was all going to roll out, what was going to happen. The house was getting so, like, everything was, I was in control, and I had the lawyers and everything to sort it out. So yeah, it was definitely a change for me to then go, I'm in control.
Yeah, you have to, what we have to understand is that someone who needs to control and diminish someone else is
Mm,
is a very, very small and weak person in themselves. Because when you're operating from your own sense of yourself, your own self-confidence, your own security, you don't need to diminish and
mm,
manipulate and control anyone else. So
that's right.
anyone who is diminishing, manipulating, and controlling you is themselves operating from a lack of self-confidence, self-belief, and all they have is this manipulation and this control. And when you understand that, and in your mind you can diminish them to this tiny, tiny person that they really are, and you understand that they don't actually have any real power, like you said, it's actually a lot of it about what people will think and say and what will happen. It's all imagined. It's not reality.
That's right. Absolutely. And that goes for so much of life, of how we stop us from doing certain things, is because we're so busy thinking of what will other people say or do, or what will actually happen. And it can keep us really stuck.
Yeah, as it takes us right back to the fear of public speaking where we started. So
Exactly. That's
yeah.
right. And after I left that marriage, as I said, I made a vow that I would work for the rest of my days helping people and never having anybody in my situation again. And then, I did nothing for 12 years. I literally then ended up like blaming the world for everything that had happened to me. And I was still going through a lot of chronic pain and a lot of things, as much as aspects of my life changed. I was really independent, went on to have my own house, really propelled in my career. But I really kind of put myself and you'll know this as well, around, when we don't want to look within. So we find something that and I threw myself into work because
Oh yes.
that was something. And I was like, and my biggest thing was never to be controlled by anybody. So I thought, if I got into management, nobody will ever control me. And I will be able to tell other people what to do. So I literally propelled in my career and got the job that I wanted. And then I arrived in that job and didn't feel any different, and thought, well, that's interesting, because I'm here and I've achieved loads of stuff, but I don't feel any different. And yeah, and I literally just put a band-aid on emotions, because I didn't know any different. And I literally propelled in my career. And like that, I still avoided, public speaking, chairing meetings. I would delegate to everybody else and say, this is a great skill building opportunity for you. It's not
I
for
don't want to do it, but you can.
me, please, because I have the power to do that. And so I used to just, avoid all of those different types of things. And then it was over probably almost 8 years ago, I had an opportunity to come to Australia. One of my friends was going to come for a month, and she said, "Oh, do you want to come on holiday?" And I thought, "Oh, yeah, okay, but I probably couldn't come for a month. I probably can't get time off work for that. But maybe I'll come for a couple of weeks." And anyway, then we had more conversations, and she said, "Oh, maybe we could go for a year and do like a working holiday visa." And then I thought, oh, I'd love to, but I'm still at university. I think I had another 6 months to go. And I said, well, if you wait 6 months, then I could look at, taking a career break from work and having a look at what I could do and come for a year. And she did. So yeah, I asked work if I could take a year career break, looked at renting out my house, sorting out my car, all of these different things. And I thought this was like my American ticket. Way back when I was 18, I thought this is my opportunity to do what I wanted to do. It was like sliding doors of this is your second chance. Are you taking it? Or are you not? And everything just fell into place with, you know, taking a career, all of these things. Again, I had fear around, well, what if I can't do this? What if this will happen? And but everything just happened. And about 6 months before I left, I was given the book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. And again, I had never grown up with any self-development books or anything like that. I was on Eden Blyton, you know, Famous Five, all of those different types of books that I
Same as
always read.
me. Yeah.
But self-development, never. And so somebody giving me the book after experiencing trauma and being very kind of Scottish in a way of really cynical and angry at the world and Braveheart and all of these things, and gave me the book, and the book tells you to take responsibility for something that's happened in your life. I thought, are you kidding me? And I remember throwing the book back at my friend going, no, I'm not going to read that again. And she said, "Oh, read it again with an open mind." And I thought, oh, I don't want to be closed minded. So I read it again. And then I watched the documentary and I saw something shifted in me. I started to understand more about looking within and taking responsibility. And from that moment on, things just massively changed for me. I consumed, I think, every book known to everybody. Like for 6 months, I think I just read a book a day, listening to audios and just really consuming all of this stuff. And I thought, well, if I've got an opportunity to come to Australia and come out of my environment, I have been given this opportunity for a reason. It's now time for me to step up and do what I had said the 12 years prior. And I came to Australia and it was like I had come home. As soon as I landed, I said to my friend, I think I'm going to stay in Australia forever. And she said,
Wow.
but how do you know that? And I went, it's really hard to explain. I said, I feel like I'm home. Like it was something that was just for me, my intuition. This was where I was meant to be. And I did everything I could to stay in the country. I'm here 7 years later and a citizen of Australia, but I just knew that I was just meant to be here for something greater. And this was the opportunity to come out of friends, to come out of family. Not that I say to people, you have to come to the other side of the world, because when I went through customs, anything to declare, no, just this bag, just this luggage. But in here, I mean, that could be quite endless. So I have to say, when I did come to Australia, I looked and went, why do I still feel like that? Why do I still feel like what I felt like when I was in Scotland? Again, I didn't know enough to know that it comes with you. It's not
Yeah.
actually in the environment that
The
you're in.
common denominator is you. I can tell you, I can so relate to this. I, my husband and I, we emigrated 14 years ago, like to leave behind all of our problems.
Yeah.
And within a few months, everything was exactly as it had been. And I was astounded. Like, how did this happen? I like you, I didn't have any of the knowledge or anything that I had then. How did this happen? And I didn't realize for a long time. It's because it was about you.
Yeah.
You brought yourselves with you. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a game changer when you realize that what is happening in your life is you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And also what you said about taking responsibility. And it's not, I think it's important that we tell people, it's like you're not responsible for your husband's behavior and that he was verbally and physically abusive, but what you are responsible for is how you, like, ignoring the red flags,
Yeah.
getting married anyway, not telling someone, all of those things. This is where everything changes, when instead of just blaming everyone else for what happened, we look at our role.
Yeah.
We look at our role and say, what did I do? What could I have done? How did I help this happen? How could I have stopped it? How can I change my future?
Yeah.
That's the responsibility. I don't want people to get caught up thinking, oh, well, you're telling me I could have stopped the sexual abuse when I was a child. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's not about that, but it's about moving forward and being responsible for what happens from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's that way of going, for 12 years, he still had the power over me, even though I wasn't in the relationship. And
Right.
that's my responsibility for allowing that to happen. And that's what you're saying as well around we get to take the power back and be responsible for how we now respond to
Yeah.
life, to everything. And now it's like I look back in that and I have so much love for that experience because I wouldn't be the person I am today without that happening. And I take full responsibility in it, absolutely. And I take full responsibility after it to be where I am today, to then, yeah, read those books and really start to look within and really make those changes in my own life. And coming to Australia was that opportunity. And has it been easy coming to Australia and getting to live in this country? No, it has not. There's been massive challenges, but it's actually, I look back at it and I go, these were all the situations for me to keep digging deeper into me. So by losing $5,000 in my very first visa because it got denied and it's non-refundable, then I had to move to Central Queensland, completely on my own, completely had never been to like a country town. I'd always come from a city, lived in Brisbane for a little while, and then went to Central Queensland and ended up there for 5 years so that I could stay in the country, paid another $5,000 and obviously got to stay. But in there, it was like that way of I had to really fully look in and silence myself because I didn't have the big lights and the big cities to be able to take a lot of that away from me.
Ah, yeah.
I was
Yeah.
fully on my own. Like it took me a while to, I suppose, make friends and really integrate into that society. But, I only had to be up there for 2 years and I stayed for 5 because, I said, I'm not leaving until I'm ready. When I am ready, something will come and something will then transform me to, I'm now living down on the Gold Coast. And I just knew I'm not leaving. There's work for me to be done. There's work for me to do here. And when I'm ready, then that's when I will go to the next level and spending that time up there. And that's where really about overcoming public speaking because I was in a smaller town and I thought, oh, I really want to integrate into society. I really actually think I'm here of service and what can I do to really service this community, and it is a community. And before I went up there in Brisbane, I started going to public speaking groups and things like that and started to really set that scene and overcome it. And then when I went up there, I thought, well, maybe I could just develop, a public speaking club up there and really help people, of my age range, people in business, because I was in a job, but I knew that I would eventually have my own business. And I thought, well, if I start doing these things and helping other people, then maybe that's something that could really help other people as well. So that's really where the journey went up there was, yeah, developing these groups and really starting to overcome that for myself, but helping other people do the same. And I started to see around having a voice, having communication skills was so important. And it's not just about whether it's in business, it's every single day we are communicating with people. But in that moment, I started to realize that the organization that I was in around getting public speaking skills, something missing. Like there was something missing for me. There's always been the intuition around authentic communication, sharing stories. And again, I kept getting shut down with sharing a story and sharing my journey. And I thought, well, that's really quite strange because I feel like this is where I'm meant to be. So I started again being kind of shut down and not being allowed to have my voice heard. And I thought, that's not right. And it really is about stories that is so, so powerful. And if I can't express that, then I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm actually going to start my own business and really help people to do that. So really, again, that was the catalyst that I learned enough that I needed in order to move. And then I started to help women outside of my job to, really help them have a voice. And really from there, people said, you should really do this as a business. Like, it's really helping me and really helping me share my story and help me grow my business or help me in my job. And I really started to go, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And I really just propelled more in that. And I turned down jobs that were, making more money than I'd ever made before. But I just thought, again, I'd be in that position where I got to that level and I didn't feel fulfilled.
Right. So it really is. And obviously that's why you're on this podcast. It's why we all come on here. It's why I run it, so that we can share story, because story, I know the comments and the information that I get back from people about how just a sentence, just having something clarified, but just knowing that other women have been through these things, and the amazing success and the lives that they've created the other end. The power of story, that's all we're doing on this podcast, is we're all telling our story, and helping other people to make sense of theirs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just something, again, we connect, right? We just connect. We hang on to people's words and we get drawn in. It's like, when you go into someday, people watch Netflix and you're going through the trailers, and then you can be sitting going, oh, I want to watch that because it's really drawn me in, because around the story, it's the same for that human connection. And yet it was actually in a particular day, the job that I was in a really good job, and I did love it, but again, I just didn't feel fulfilled. I knew there was something else for me. And this Monday morning, I turned up at work and actually collapsed and ended up in for emergency surgery. and didn't expect that on a Monday morning, and ended up in for emergency surgery. And so interesting, because it was gynecological, but obviously there was answers. But however, we know that that's something that I've created in that. But it was a bit like the sledgehammer. And basically within 3 months, I quit my job, because when I was going through recovery and healing and things like that, my colleagues and boss at the time were actually not very supportive of me. It was a bit like, this is a headache that you've ended up in hospital and off for a little while.
Oh, okay.
So, but I knew that was what I needed. I knew that it was the sledgehammer to go, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're doing this stuff on the side and you're in this job for what reason? And yeah, I handed in my notice and basically started my business from there, and just thought, right, I'm going to trust, I'm going to surrender. This is what I'm meant to do. You're going to show me what I'm meant to do and where I'm meant to go and who I'm meant to help. And from there, my business just propelled. And the more, the more practice time that I had, the more that I helped women. And now, like, I help women have that voice. And clients tell me all the time, like, I filled my day retreat, I've made this amount of money. And you know why? Because I shared my story. I shared my story, and everybody then just went, sign me up. I don't even know what this is or what's happening, but your story really resonated with me. I need to come to your day event or your day retreat or whatever it is that you run, because of that story. And that just, it just really fulfills me to go, people are really loving that story aspect, and people being able to overcome their fears and anxieties and stresses around really putting it out there, but being able to share it in a way that people resonate with that story. Because we all know, we can all share stories, but people can also go into it as a bit like a shopping list as well. So there's different ways around how we share stories as well. And it just lights me up to see the transformation that people have that I work with them. And whether it's just finding their voice to share more around a team meeting, or being able to have compassion for people in your work, or is, being able to get on camera or standing on stage to share your story or your amazing work that you do, is just so fulfilling. And the thing is that when we share stories, is that when people hear it, and we give permission for people to do it and hear it, we give people permission to do the same, which you'll know from your podcast. It's a ripple effect of the amount of lives that we can impact from having one conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I love that the ripple effect that comes from the work that we do. It doesn't just affect the life of the person we're working with. It's
Mhm.
like our work. I know my work has had a significant effect on my children, on my employees, on my husband. It the impact is immeasurable.
Mm,
Everyone, when we start showing up as the best version of ourselves,
yeah,
the impact on other people is, it's beyond what you can imagine. When you hear that when you change yourself, other people change themselves in response, it just sounds like words, and then you see it happen, and you feel the shift in the energy, the attitudes, the language, everything that's going on around you just changes. It's incredible.
absolutely. So, so powerful. And I'd like to just touch on a little bit more about this. And for people, so when I was going through that journey of, finding myself, looking within and doing all of the work, I was working with a coach at the time, and it would have been 4 or 5 years ago. And he had said to me, what would be really good if you actually made contact with your ex-husband and forgave him and really put closure on that. And that was like a whole other level for me to do. And I thought, well, this has been 13, 14 years. Like, how will I contact him? Like, I don't even know where he lives. Like, I have nothing to contact him. And we have social media. And he said, well, there's Facebook. And I said, well, he won't even be on Facebook. Like, he won't be there. And I was making every excuse under the sun because I didn't want to do it. Anyway, lo and behold, he was on Facebook. So I thought, okay, I'm going to sit with this. And then thought, right, okay, if I message him on Messenger and we're not friends, he might not even get it. But I suppose the whole purpose of it was really for me and not for him, regardless of what happened. And I kind of typed out a message and then I would delete it. And I'm like, how do I even go here? And like, what do I say? And then eventually I think I just put like a few sentences with, hey, how are you going? What are you up to? And it took him about 3 days to come back to me. And he messaged back going, hey, what do you want? I thought, well, that's fair enough. Like, out of the blue, what do I want? And really, I just went into a message of, that I forgave him for everything and all of these things. And he never came back and took any responsibility. But that's not what I was looking for. I just needed to love him, bless him, forgive him, send him on his way, and just be okay with that for me. And then and that's what I did. And then at that point I was writing blogs on a Facebook page. So after we'd done that and he came back and it was such a heartfelt conversation, I then went on and did my blog before I went to bed. Now it's during the daytime in the UK, so I did this at night and then went to bed. And I wrote a blog about the whole thing of what I had just went through and what I had done and all of those things. And then went to bed, and he'd obviously done some stalking during the day and found it. So when I woke up in the morning, I woke up to abusive messages because obviously I touched on certain aspects of what had happened as well, and he wanted me to take it down. And in that split moment, I almost went back to who she was back then and thought, no, don't give your power. You're within your right to have the freedom of expression to share what you've went
Telling
through.
the truth.
Yeah. And I thought, I'm not taking it down because you have no hold over me. As much as he was saying, like, he would go to my parents' house. And I thought, well, you're not going to go to my parents' house because that's just threats. I didn't take it down and then just sent him on his way. And then in that moment, someone on my Facebook page shared that blog to someone else, and someone else in Scotland. And I don't know who that was that shared it. And then 2 days later, this lady messaged me and she'd read the blog. And in that moment, she'd actually left her partner because of my story that I shared. And she
Wow.
was in an abusive relationship. In the story, like, it was massive. And I thought, that's massive for her to be really vulnerable and send me that message. And that's where that power of stories is, that we just never know who we could touch and help simply by writing or speaking. And we got into quite a bit of a discussion. And I was actually going back to Scotland in 6 weeks' time. And I said, like, I'd love to catch up with you when I'm at home. I think that would be really good, because I knew that I thought this is my opportunity to be the co-worker and, and really support her to be able to stay away. And but the interesting thing is that the person that she was actually seeing my ex-husband, and that's who she'd left. So by me messaging him started the ripple effect to her ending up leaving that relationship.
That is amazing. What an incredible story.
I know. That's why I had to share that. And I sat in a coffee shop, and it was like I was looking at a mirror reflection of me the 12, 13 years before. It was looking, she was like, just that person of, I've just left this relationship, but I'm just so low. But then I was a mirror reflection for her to go, but look where I am and look what I've achieved.
Right.
And the same is possible for you. And I am going to be here every step of the way. And she bought me this amazing book because she'd obviously done some research within that time and knew that I was on the path of spirituality and self-development. And she gave me this book. She bought me this book called I Met a Monk. And I thought, well, that's amazing that she's bought me that. But yeah, we met up for coffee, and we were still friends today. And I went home only at the beginning of the year, and we caught up again. And she's in a new relationship. She's moved on, and absolutely amazing. But that's the power of, I had to go through the fear and everything that was coming up for me to message him, for me to write the blog to overcome the threats again. And then I didn't even know that someone, and we still don't know to this day who that joint person was that sent her the blog.
Amazing. Just, yeah, the power of telling our stories and being real and honest. And thank goodness you didn't give in to that fear, and you didn't get manipulated. And also the power of forgiveness, because we have to understand that everything that we hold on to only hurts us. Yeah. The other person doesn't care. They don't know. They're not going through it. But every day that we hold on to blame and unforgiveness, it just takes up space within us, space and energy and focus that is so much better served going elsewhere. There is real power in genuine forgiveness and releasing, and forgiving yourself too. Forgiving yourself for the things that you did or didn't do, that you did or didn't know. Just letting all of that go, and just really just creating space for something new.
That's right. Very exactly. And in that moment, it was such a shift for me. Absolutely. And that was prior to me starting my business. So like that was the catalyst that I knew, wow, the power of having your voice written or spoken in that moment literally was my driver to go, if I can help that one person doing what I've done, I could help so many more people. And that's what I think of every time I speak. I always say, and we spoke about this in the beginning, of not caring about those other people. And I say it to my clients, one person, that's all it takes. One person out of 10, 20, 100, whatever it is, it's that one person you're talking to, because that one person is going to do the ripple effect. Everyone else that's maybe not on that path, that's okay, but you talk to that one person. And that's what I say every time I speak. If I help one person today, my job is done.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Melanie. I mean, obviously we'll put all of your information in the show notes, but sometimes people are listening rather than reading. They're not all watching. So anyone who resonates with what you said in any way at all and would like to find out more about what you do, working with you, learning from you, connecting with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, they can find me on social media, Speaking Styles or Melanie Wood. Google those and you can connect with me on any of the social medias or through my website.
Fantastic. And your website is Speaking Styles as well?
.com.au.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for everything you've shared, and I'm sure anyone listening will have found it invaluable, and there are some wonderful lessons in everything that you've shared. So thank you so much for being here and for everything that you do.
Thank you so much again, Sarah, for having me. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you again.
And thanks so much for sharing your voice.